Another LNP Lancaster Online Sports Roundtable and reporter John Walk with colleague Mike Gross. Mr. Reinhardt is on vacation this week. We're joined guest this week, Mr. Travis Jankowski. Lancaster fans know him as the Lancaster Catholic graduate. He's now the Cincinnati Reds outfielder. Quick background read up on Mr. Jankowski. 2012 first-round pick of the San Diego Padres. That came after he was named the America East Player of the Year at Stony Brook. I'll get into that a little bit more. It's an inspiring story there. He's now logged 334 big league games over the last 5 seasons, all with the Padres. He was traded to Cincinnati over the offseason. Has basically been in Lancaster trying to stay baseball ready in light of the current circumstances, which we'll get into among other topics. With that, Mike, I'll throw it to you for the first question, man. Go ahead.
Okay, Travis, welcome. One of the things that I think you have to understand Major League Baseball normally is that it's a game that you play every day. It's a marathon, not a sprint. This is going to be more like a sprint. How do you think it will change the game? How do you think it'll change the way managers will think about it? I don't know that it'll change how you think about it very much, but how do you think the game is going to change because of, it's a pretty radical difference. It's a third, a little more than a third of the season.
Yeah. So I think just right off the top, with it being a third of the season, like you said, it's going to be a sprint. So when you play 162 games, if you lose a game in extra innings by a run, it hurts, but it doesn't kill you. Playing 60 games, it's almost like going back to college where every single game matters. I think just the importance of just one run in a game, the importance of defense, preventing a run or, not making a costly error and letting guys get on base. On the offensive side, the importance of getting a bunt down or moving or running over. It's really, I think it's going to go back to old school baseball where
that was going to be my next question. Do you think it will become a little bit more small ball? And do you think that helps you a little bit?
Absolutely. Small ball is my game. Selfishly, I'm hoping it goes back to small ball and people catch on and, maybe for the next 10 years we go to small ball. But it's one of those things where I think with baseball, you almost have to have that good mix of small ball and long ball. And, over the course of 162 games, like I said, you can get away with losing a couple games and, extra innings and letting a couple mistakes kind of eat you up. When you play 60 games, like I said, every game matters. So it's really going to be a fundamentally sound season.
And small ball, obviously involves getting guys on base, stealing bases, moving guys over, whether it be sacrifice flies, sacrifice bunts. And I was going to have this on my list of questions. I was going to get to it later. We might as well get to it now. As far as you, not only being that outfielder, but being that base stealer and being known for your quicks. Can you kind of take us behind the scenes a little bit as far as what makes a good base stealer? What's kind of the tricks of the trade for you there? What's worked over the years?
Yeah, for me, it's doing a lot of homework. At the major league level, you have probably more information than you even need. But it's kind of filtering through that information, realizing what's useful, what's, not useful for you, but maybe useful for the next guy. And really having a plan off each individual pitcher, not only hitting, but for me on the base stealing side too. So for me, I go through about an hour of work every day, trying to find a pitcher's tendencies, trying to find his rhythm to the plate, picking up on something that he's going to do, when he's coming over, and just have that little slight advantage. It's one of those things where being a base stealer, being a guy who, for me, I don't feel like I'm an established big leaguer. I still feel like I have to, fight for any advantage I can get against these guys. It's huge. And it's what could, maybe get me a job again next year and, the year after that, or I could be done and into the real world.
And kind of with that, over the offseason, traded from the Padres to the Reds, who have an overabundance of outfielders. What's kind of your anticipations going into camp there, just as far as competing for a spot?
Yeah, for me, it's always been one of those things where I've competed my whole life. Nothing's ever been given to me. Kind of been an under the radar, kind of underdog type story. So for me, it's nothing new. I know if I can go out there and if I can play my game and just control what I can control, I'll be in a fine spot. I'm a big believer that I'm going to go out there. I'm going to lay it all out on the field every single inning of every single game. And if that's not good enough, then it's not good enough. But I know I'll be able to look myself in the mirror and say, I gave it my all.
Travis, baseball it's such a development of refined skill sport. And so you can, I imagine that it's going to be harder for everybody to get up to like regular season sharpness in the skill area. What have you done to not only have your body where you want it to be for the grind, but skill level, but that you're going to be able to go to spring training and hit? What have you done to work on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, for me, it's been, you had him on the show, I guess a couple of weeks ago. It's been working with Ross Peeples. Not only, getting my body physically ready, he's a lefty BP thrower. So him throwing BP left on left is obviously more challenging for me. But it makes facing a righty so much easier. So I'd, much rather struggle in the off season to get my timing and everything and go into the season and make it easier. So for me, it's kind of the perfect match. And it was great to, meet Ross a few years back and have a relationship with him. But also, I'll be honest with you, the physical stuff is going to be the easy part, I think, for most of the guys. Playing in front of a stadium with no fans, that's going to be tough. And for me, it's one of those things where I think it's a team who makes the least amount of excuses is going to, end up going into the playoffs and making a run. Because every team is going to have a million excuses, a million reasons why they lost the game or why they're not performing. Bottom line is you just got to put your head in the ground and you got to go through. So for me, this year, it's no excuses. If my play isn't up to par, that's on me. It's not the fans, it's not the coaches, it's no one, it's on me.
That's interesting because, like baseball and football or even hockey, there might be more of a constant roar during the game. But in baseball, there's like this ambient noise all the time that just sounds like baseball, right?
Exactly.
That's not going to be there. That will be weird. I didn't really think much about that, but that'll be strange.
Yep. So I think just kind of mentally preparing for that now. So come the first game, you're not shocked by it. I think that's an advantage right there.
Where are you guys going to live? How are you going to handle travel? Have you thought? You must have talked about that with your teammates and with the people with the Reds. I mean, how's that going to work?
I'll be honest, we actually haven't.
You guys.
I imagine we're going to be in a hotel, kind of a team hotel where probably no guests are allowed. I think no air travel. I believe it's all going to be done by bus.
Really?
But
wow.
I think they're changing the divisions up just for this year.
Yeah, they are doing that. Yeah.
I think it's going to be all bus travel. Don't hold me to that. Like I said, I'm getting news as quick as you guys. I'm just waiting for it to all unravel. But yeah, I mean, I think you prepare for the worst, but hope for the best.
Right.
So, Travis, do you typically in a regular season, you're a father to a 2-year-old son. I know you're in Lancaster now, but do you typically bring them with you during a season?
Absolutely. I'd miss them too much. So.
And what's kind of are you going to do that this year as well in light of the circumstances? Do you have any reservations about that?
Again, I'm not too sure if we're even allowed.
Okay.
If we're allowed, gosh, which I hope we are, because going 4 months without seeing them would absolutely crush me. But it's one of those things that if they're allowed, yeah, they'll be out here. Now, what we tend to do is if I go on like a 10-day road trip, instead of my wife staying in, Cincinnati or San Diego previously, she'll fly home and, take care of the house here and whatnot, hang out with her family and everyone gets their little grandbaby time. But, when I'm there, they're there, they're supporting me, they're at every game. And there's nothing that makes an 0 for 4 better than coming back and seeing them.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you kind of hit on this a minute ago, just as far as that underdog story. I was reading up just to refresh my brain last night. Stony Brook was the only D1 school to offer you coming out of Catholic. And with that said, how much motivation did that provide? Because obviously you went on to have a stellar collegiate career. I'm just wondering, have you always kind of used that as fuel going back?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I want to prove people wrong. I want coaches to come up to me at the college level and, say, geez, how in the world did we miss someone like you? How did we not find you? How did you go under the radar so well?
You had to teach all of those guys, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we ended up having 7 guys drafted. So I think a lot of those guys are getting that same question that I've gotten at times. For me, that's like one of the biggest compliments you can get. How did you go under the radar? And to be honest, I think it starts with going to a smaller school, playing Northeast baseball, which at the time wasn't great. I think people are starting to realize now that, us Northeast boys, we can play a little bit. And, I think another thing is just humility. I'm not one to boast or brag. I go about my business, try and stay under the radar as much as I can, and I think that plays a big part of it too.
Was baseball your number one sport, like in high school? Because I sort of remember you more for football, honestly.
I was. You guys might be able to say more. I like to say I was better at football than baseball, but again, that's for you guys to decide. I had more offers for football than baseball. Let's put it that way.
What were some of the offers? That's interesting. What were some of the offers for football?
So the biggest and probably most well-known was UConn.
Okay.
So UConn, New Hampshire, Maine, a lot of Division I AA schools, William and Mary. But yeah, for me, I had a talk with my high school baseball coach. At the time, I was about 165 pounds. He said, "Hey, man, you catch one ball across the middle, you go against a 250-pound linebacker, he goes, your career's not going to last long." So that opened my eyes a little bit. I missed it like crazy. UConn went to the Fiesta Bowl my freshman year in college, which made, a little salt in the wound there. But, when I look back, and I have no regrets, especially with all the, head trauma in the NFL now.
True, yeah. So you're the very rare guy. You're the very rare guy that truly had a choice between two sports at the Division I level. I think, and you know what, the great leveling factor of all sports is speed. You got the wheels, right? That's what, that's really something. You really had that option. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Can you kind of, I know you mentioned as far as working with Ross Peeples, the Lancaster Barnstormers manager, can you just kind of walk me through in a summary a little bit as far as like how you guys initially met, and then also like what's just kind of been the workout schedule over these last few weeks, and where have you done that at?
Yeah, so me and Ross met, I would say it was probably 5 years ago. Ross gave lessons at Spooky Nook, and I was working out at Spooky Nook. And one of our mutual friends said, "Hey, you guys should meet. You're both baseball guys." And I thought it was going to be kind of, I meet this guy once and we talk baseball and I never see him again. Well, everyone calls Ross the mayor of Lancaster because Ross knows everyone. He is by far one of the best humans, one of the best, just all around guys I've ever met. So after talking with him, I was like, "Hey," and I talked to our mutual friend. I said, "Can I get this guy's number? I think talking ball with him on a more frequent basis would be great." So we developed our friendship that way a little bit. And then, the following off season, I asked him, I said, "Hey man, I don't have anyone to throw me batting practice. And I think it would be a huge advantage if you'd be able to throw to me if you're up for it." He was beyond, honored and excited to do that for me. And our relationship just grew from there. And, Ross was at our wedding. I see Ross 3, 4, 5 times a week in the off season. It's been 3, 4, 5 weeks I've been seeing him now, working out with him, and he's honestly just one of my best friends. And it's great to talk to a guy who's been through the minor leagues, been through everything, has a couple years on me as far as age goes, so that wisdom's there, and he's really just a student of the game. So it's great to just in the off season continue to have baseball talks with him and walk through things in season that come up and just have someone to vent to a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. Travis, supposedly the Reds have, you're one of 9 outfielders competing for 5 spots, maybe 4 or 5 spots. So what do you know about the Reds minor league system? Is it's with all the unsettled stuff that's going on in minor league baseball right now? Do you even, are they settled as far as where their AAA is? And could you go? I mean, is this going to be like 3 weeks of spring training and then maybe I'm going to AAA? Is that the deal? I guess it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know, I think there's going to be a taxi squad. And I think it's going to be 20, 25 guys who are at a complex somewhere near the big league team, just in case, someone contracts a virus or, someone gets hurt. Because to be honest, I don't think there will be a minor league season this year. I just think there's too many issues that have to get passed and too many different cities out there. So, yeah, I think the taxi squad would be the plan if you don't make the team. You'll be on the taxi squad working out every day. For us, it would probably be within a 30-minute radius of, the ballpark in Cincinnati. But it would just pretty much be pitchers throwing to hitters and staying fresh and just kind of waiting for, that call, whether it's injury or, performance or anything like that.
I think that is the way it's going to be now that you mention it. I think that's right. Yeah.
Travis, Last thing for me, because I think there's probably obviously going to be some younger guys, maybe high school players watching this. And I always kind of like to ask that as far as your role model to them, most likely. What kind of advice would you have to those younger players, whether it be how to succeed or obstacles that you've overcome?
Yeah, for me, it's it's one of those sayings that I think people say a lot, but they don't understand completely. When people say the game's 98% mental and 2% physical, or 90% mental and 10% physical, it's the truth. The physical play of it definitely plays a part. Hand-eye coordination, speed, athleticism plays a part. But if you don't have a mentality of, I'm going to get better each day and I'm going to actually learn the ins and outs of baseball and just have that kind of like street smart, but baseball wise, you're going to fizzle out. I've seen it to way too many guys in the minor leagues who physically hit the ball a mile, can run a 6'4", 60, but they can't figure out hitting at the plate. They can't figure out how to deal with failure. So really, I think the quicker you learn that, the sharper your mind is, the better you're going to be in the long run. I think your career could take off from there.
And you've had to deal with obstacles the last few seasons, injuries in 2017 and 2019, and that kind of put you on the shelf and watching from afar. I don't know, was that something that you've had to learn like trial by fire, or maybe you were just you had already learned those lessons and maybe kind of helped you through it?
I thought I'd learned the lessons, but I haven't. Those getting hurt, it's going to test your character. It's a punch right to the gut, especially in 2017. In 2017, out of spring training, I accomplished my goal. I was an opening day starter against Clayton Kershaw in Dodger Stadium. That's been my dream as a kid, to be a starter in the big leagues, and I earned that. And 2 weeks in, I broke my foot, and it's like, well, talk about being from on cloud nine all the way down to in the dumps. And not to mention the guy who came up and took my spot while I was on the shelf hit 300. And then when I was healthy and came back, there was no spot for me. So I was in AAA again. So it was a really frustrating year. But for me, it was a lesson learned. It was, wow, man, I need to get better. And I need to realize that at any point in time, this game can be taken away from me. And once you think that you've made it to the big leagues and you're a starter, you have everyone who's playing baseball below you trying to take your job away.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where even when you think that you've made it, the second you think you've made it, you're chopped down, So it's one of those things where you have to keep going, you have to keep grinding. And I think when you officially retire and hang your cleats up, that's when you sit back and say, wow, that was awesome,
And now going into your 6th year as a big leaguer, I can still very much hear in your voice that motivation to want to prove yourself and make this a career and be an opening day starter and whatnot. So you still have many things to push for moving forward here, and hopefully that's the case here in the next few weeks. Mike, anything last from you, man?
No, just we'll be watching. In addition to everything else, this is kind of a social experiment here, and I'm interested. I mean, I know I've seen some people on Twitter saying, I'm not going to watch this baseball season. I think it's pretty interesting. I'm going to watch. I mean, baseball is better than non-baseball, right? Obviously. Come on. So anyway, we're watching. We'll be watching.
Cool. Hey, Travis, best of luck to you, man, and thanks for making time for us today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for talking, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, rock and roll.
See you guys.